Hey gang, Cunny Guy here, back again with another do-it-yourself video. I thought I'd spend some time doing a little video on how to remove the Cosmoline from military surplus rifles. If you're like me and you have a love for military surplus rifles, then you're going to learn quickly how to remove Cosmoline from the gun parts and more importantly the furniture. I've scoured the internet looking for various means of removing the Cosmoline. There are a number of techniques out there and they all pretty much work, some more efficiently than others. Some don't involve a whole lot of cost, and some just to me is unnecessary and a complete waste of time. Now, what I have here is a couple of M1 Garands that I purchased, and they all came from the factory loaded with Cosmoline. Probably not as much Cosmoline as what you might find on, say, Mosin Nagant or something like that, but enough to make the gun stock very sticky, and you could certainly see the Cosmoline on some of the parts. Now, what I have here is an M1 that I cleaned, removed the Cosmoline, degreased the entire gun, and then put it back together. And it just looks fantastic. Certainly didn't look like this when I first got it, but as you can tell, the stock looks great. Now, what I have here is another M1, and this is straight from the factory. It hasn't been cleaned, it hasn't been taken apart, and you probably have a difficult time seeing the Cosmoline on it, but there is Cosmoline, and when you grasp the stock, it's sticky. So the first step in removing Cosmoline is, of course, disassembling your gun so that you only have the wooden furniture to play with. Of course, it's a lot easier to clean the metal parts, and I'm not going to be talking about that in this video because that's pretty self-explanatory. Well, what I did want to share with you is the way I do it, a simple way of doing it. You don't need to boil your stock. You don't need to put it in an oven. You don't need to bake it in a black trash bag and leave it on the dashboard of your car for several days. It's a relatively quick and inexpensive process, and I think will lead to the same results as the other techniques that you might come across on the internet. Well, anyways, what I do want to show you is what is involved in terms of the materials that you will need to get started once you have taken apart your gun and reduced it to its basic components. And of course, you'd put the furniture on the side, and that's what you would be working with. What you see here is an M1 Garand stock that I am in the process of cleaning. I've gone through several treatments, which I'll go into detail in a moment. But this is what the stock will look after you remove the Cosmoline. It originally starts off with this color, and then it turns to a lighter shade. Okay, so moving right along, a few things that you would need to remove the Cosmoline from your firearm in a fairly quick manner is, first of all, you need to get yourself a bottle of Tilex. This bottle cost me $2.50 at a local store down the street, and of course, please make sure that this one is or I should say bleach free right there. The Tilex comes in different colored bottles, and if you're looking for the Tilex, just look for the green bottle. I believe it comes in an orange bottle or a red bottle, so just look for the bottle without the bleach. Buy yourself a bottle. A bottle will probably treat 2 rifle stocks, or complete with handset and so forth. So you buy 1 bottle, that's quite a bit. Next thing you want to do is get yourself a stiff bristled brush. It doesn't necessarily have to be like this, but this is what I had. This is what I bought to scrub the tires off of my car. It's got nylon bristles and it's pretty coarse. If you wish, you could go with something a little bit smaller, easier to handle. But this is what I've got. And then I've got a spare toothbrush to get into those little nooks and crannies. And last but not least, my wife's hair dryer. Probably want to use this stuff when she's not home. Otherwise, you'll probably have a bigger problem than getting the Cosmoline out of your rifle. So, moving on, what you do is take your stock parts outside, spray the Tilex on it, and what you will see is that it will immediately begin to dissolve the Cosmoline. You'll see a brown, foamy substance run down off the gun. You let it soak for a minute or so. It doesn't take much longer than that. Then you take your brush and then you begin to scrub it, and then you rinse it with water. Now, tap water is fine. Cold tap water is fine. If you want to do it in the sink, perhaps a basin where you wash your clothes, that's fine. Some people will tell you not to do that because the Cosmoline will collect in the drain pipes. Well, yes and no. I didn't really care. I did it both ways. I took it outside, scrubbed it, and rinsed it with a water hose, and then I did it inside in a basin. Either way, I mean, if you're doing it during the dead of winter, you're not going to be standing outside hosing your wooden stock down. It's probably more convenient for you to do it inside. And of course, in your basin, sink basin, you probably have access to hot water. That facilitates the removal of the Cosmoline. So you choose how you wish to remove it or where you wish to rinse the stock off, and what's most convenient for you. Now, how'd that pen get there? You don't need a pen. Take your wife's toothbrush, and you'll use this to get into the nooks and crannies of the stock, which, of course, is difficult to reach with a brush of this size. All right. Now, as far as the cycles of the wash, you don't have to wait until the stock dries before applying more Tilex to it. You can keep doing it until you run out of Tilex. It's up to you, but you don't have to stop and wait for the stock to dry. You can just keep applying it, and you'll see more of the Cosmoline dissolve. Now, one of the things that I forgot to mention is that you should go over the stock with a rag or a paper towel and clean off the excessive Cosmoline that you see on the wood or on the metal parts, just to make your job a little easier. There's no reason why you should leave that on. You should be able to easily remove that with a paper towel, newspaper, or shop rag or something like that, and that will help to speed up the entire process. Now, the process that I'm talking about will get your stock clean in a day. Forget about waiting days or weeks to get this thing done. If you're like me, I mean, you're pressed for time and you don't have, you're excited, you want to get out there and shoot your gun. So now let's take a look at the stock, and I have a couple of comments that I wish to share. Okay, here I have an M1 Garand stock. Now, this stock has been treated to the Tilex wash probably about 4 or 5 times, and I did it all within the span of roughly an hour or so. The stock dries relatively quickly. I mean, it depends on where you live, I suppose. If you live in a humid area, then it might take a while for the stock to dry, but once it dries, it'll look something like this. I mean, as compared to the dark wood that you see there, this is what lies underneath of it. Now, it may be difficult for you to see in this video, but there are areas of the stock that are discolored or darker in shade, and that may or may not indicate where additional treatments may be necessary to remove Cosmoline. A darker grain wood may indicate that the wood is soaked with Cosmoline But that's not necessarily always true. I mean, you can have wood with a darker shade in different areas. Like, for example, here. You can see that discoloration there, which would indicate, to me anyway, that perhaps this area needs to be redone. Okay, and perhaps under the butt here, and where the stamping is here. Now, clearly you can see in here some of the corners where there is still Cosmoline in the corners, and in certain areas in the stock where the receiver would sit, certainly potential areas for more Cosmoline. And what I've found is that the nooks and crannies is where additional Cosmoline removal may be necessary. Parts near the steel parts that are still on the gun oftentimes have excess Cosmoline under the parts. Thus, it will continue to weep out onto the wood if the stock is heated up. So what you want to do to speed up the process, I mean, some people will throw it into a black trash bag and put it on the dashboard of their car, leave the windows rolled up and let the stock bake, so to speak, for a day to sweat the Cosmoline out. That works. Some other people will throw it into an oven to speed up that process, to draw out draw out the Cosmoline that's still in the stock itself. Of course, if your wife finds out that you're sticking gun parts in her oven, she might have a fit. So the other technique that I did employ was to use a hairdryer. So take your wife's hairdryer, and you can actually sweat the Cosmoline out of the wood, or areas of the wood. For example, this area here, certain areas in here, and of course in the nooks and crannies there, where you could see a little glistening of the Cosmoline. That's Cosmoline, actually. You can see it right there. And what you'll actually be able to see is the Cosmoline leaching out of the wood. There'll be some bubbling, so to speak, and movement. You'll see the reflection of Cosmoline seeping out or leaching out of the wood. Then once you've gone over it with your hair dryer, and you're convinced that you did a pretty decent job of sweating out whatever Cosmoline there was to sweat out in the areas that you think may have excess Cosmoline, then you just give it another bath, the Tilex treatment, and you're good to go. Relatively simple, straightforward. If you spend time doing it the way that I've done it, I think you'll be done removing the Cosmoline from the stock of your gun in a day or so. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. Thanks.